What if the fairy tale didn't end with the limo ride, the flowers, and the unforgettable kiss on the balcony? What if Edward and Vivian's love story wasn't just a one-time Hollywood dream, the beginning of a journey that fans have been waiting over 30 years to see? Imagine Julia Roberts and Richard Gere, not just as the iconic characters we fell in love with, but as two people who must face the test of time, family and life in a world that has changed around them. Pretty Woman 2 isn't just about revisiting the past, it's about rediscovering the magic of love when the world expects you to move on. Asterisk, back in 1990. Pretty Woman wasn't just a movie, it became a cultural event. People everywhere were swept into the story of Vivian Ward, a free-spirited woman with a witty sense of humor and a heart bigger than anyone realized. And Edward Lewis, a wealthy businessman who was used to deals, negotiations, and rules until he met her. Their worlds couldn't have been more different, yet their connection showed audiences that love doesn't care about social class, money, or background. The film painted a portrait of a modern fairy tale, and even now, decades later, it still shines as one of the most beloved romantic comedies ever made. At the time, Julia Roberts' performance captured hearts worldwide, earning her an Academy Award nomination and cementing her status as America's sweetheart. Richard Gere, already a respected leading man, brought an unexpected softness to Edward, showing us a man who could fall in love not because of perfection, but because of authenticity. Together, they didn't just play roles, they created chemistry. So powerful that even after all these years, fans still talk about their on-screen magic. That magic became the film's beating heart. It's the reason people have been dreaming of a continuation ever since the credits rolled. The impact of Pretty Woman extended beyond just its box office success. It became a film that reshaped how people looked at love stories in the 90s. It wasn't a typical romance with perfect characters who already had everything figured out. Instead, it was messy, real, and human. Vivian wasn't a polished heroine. She was flawed, vulnerable, and unafraid to speak her mind. Edward wasn't a knight in shining armor. He was a man learning how to open his heart. That balance between reality and fantasy gave the film a timeless quality, making it more than just entertainment. It was a reminder that love can surprise us when we least expect it. And let's not forget how the film influenced pop culture. From Vivian's iconic red dress at the opera, to the unforgettable shopping scene on Rodeo Drive, to the soundtrack that gave us Roy Orbison's Oh, Pretty Woman, the film created moments that live rent-free in fans' memories. Even younger generations who didn't grow up in the 1990s have discovered the film, fallen in love with its charm. That's the power of a story that's universal. It speaks across time. But with all the love and admiration, fans were always left with one lingering question: what happened after the happy ending? Did Edward and Vivian's love survive the real world? Did they build a life together, facing challenges like any other couple? Or did the pressures of wealth, fame, and personal differences create struggles that tested their bond? For over 30 years, audiences have carried those questions, hoping for answers, wondering what a sequel might look like. This is why Pretty Woman 2 sparks such excitement. It's not just another sequel, it's the opportunity to step back into a world that made people believe in unexpected love. It's the chance to see Roberts and Gere on screen together again. Their chemistry matured, their characters evolved, and their story finally continued. Fans don't just want nostalgia, they want to see how love grows, changes, and survives in the real world. And that is exactly what this concept trailer teases: the possibility of a new chapter in one of Hollywood's most iconic love stories. Asterisk, now imagine the world of Pretty Woman decades later. The fairy tale ending we all remember wasn't the end of their story, it was the beginning of a new one. In Pretty Woman 2, we re-enter the lives of Edward and Vivian, not as starry-eyed lovers in their prime, but as two people who have lived, grown, faced the beautiful misanthropes of life together. This isn't about reliving the past, it's about exploring what happens when love matures, when two people who once defied the odds must face a world that doesn't always believe in fairy tales anymore. In this concept, Vivian is no longer the young woman struggling to find her place. She's built a life, carved her own identity, and become a figure of strength and grace. Her journey from the streets of Los Angeles to the penthouse of Beverly Hills wasn't just a love story, it was a transformation. Now, she's a woman who carries her past with pride, but also embraces the future with wisdom. In a sequel, her character isn't defined by where she came from, but by the choices she makes now. As a partner, a mother, and a woman who still believes in love, Edward, on the other hand, is older, more reflective, and perhaps more vulnerable than the sharp businessman we first met. In the original, he learned that success doesn't mean much without someone to share it with. In his later years, he faces new questions. How do you keep love alive after decades of marriage? How do you balance the empire you built with the relationships that matter most? Does money still hold the same meaning it once did, or has love redefined what truly matters? These are the deeper themes a sequel could explore, giving his character layers of humanity that weren't fully revealed the first time around. Together, Edward and Vivian's relationship becomes the beating heart of the sequel. They are no longer a mismatched pair trying to prove their love against society's expectations. Instead, they're two people who have lived through the highs and lows, and must now face challenges that no amount of money, charm, or wit can easily fix. This adds emotional weight and realism because, in truth, love isn't just about the beginning, it's about what comes after. When the excitement of newness fades and real life begins. But Pretty Woman 2 wouldn't just be about Edward and Vivian. To make the story fresh and relevant for a new generation, there could be a second storyline woven into the film. Perhaps they have a daughter who is navigating her own romantic struggles, reflecting the same doubts and insecurities Vivian once faced. Her journey could mirror her mother's in surprising ways, testing her ability to trust, to open her heart, and to discover that love often arrives in the most unexpected forms. This parallel storyline would not only honor the legacy of the original, but also create a bridge to younger audiences who crave modern love stories with authenticity. The conflict at the heart of the sequel could come from many angles. Maybe Edward's business empire is under threat, forcing him to decide whether power and legacy matter more than family. Maybe Vivian finds herself pulled into a cause or passion project that challenges Edward's world of high finance. Perhaps their daughter's choices spark tension, as Edward and Vivian realize they must let her make her own mistakes, just as they once did. These conflicts would add depth, showing that even the most iconic love stories face trials. What makes the idea of Pretty Woman so special is its ability to blend nostalgia with something new. Fans would still get the humor, the charm, the romance they loved from the first film, but with a more mature and reflective lens. It's not about repeating the same beat. It's about showing how characters we once knew so well have grown into new roles, new struggles, and new joys. This is where the magic of storytelling lies, giving us a reason to care about characters decades later. Not because we miss them, but because their journey still has something left to say. And above all, its concept celebrates the power of enduring love. Hollywood is full of stories about young romance, about the thrill of the first kiss, and the excitement of new beginnings. But there are far fewer stories about what happens after the work, the compromises, the sacrifices, and the deep, lasting connection that only time can create. Pretty Woman 2 has the chance to be that rare story, a romantic sequel that proves love isn't just about the first chapter. It's about writing the whole book together. Asterisk, one of the most exciting elements about Pretty Woman 2 isn't just the continuation of the story, it's the reunion of two legendary actors whose chemistry defined an era. Julia Roberts and Richard Gere aren't simply movie stars. They're icons, and bringing them back together on screen feels like more than just casting. It feels like destiny. Their presence alone would carry the emotional weight of the sequel. But the way their characters have aged and grown is where the real heart of the film would shine. Julia Roberts as Vivian would be the soul of the movie. In the original, she was the unexpected heroine, someone who came from a world that Hollywood rarely gave center stage to, and yet she became unforgettable. Decades later, Vivian's return would give Roberts a chance to show her evolution, not just as an actress, but as a character who has lived a full life. She could bring maturity, wisdom, and even a touch of vulnerability to Vivian, reminding us that while time changes everything, the spark that made her so magnetic, is still alive. The audience would see her as a mother, a partner, and a woman who still embraces her individuality. Roberts has the talent to make that transition seamless, balancing humor with depth, elegance with fire. Richard Gere, stepping back into the shoes of Edward Lewis, would embody the other half of this timeless love story in the original. He was suave, commanding, and quietly charming. But in a sequel, Edward's character could carry the marks of a man who is built and lost, who has loved and fought, and who must now redefine what success truly means. Gere has always had the ability to play both strength and fragility, and this story would allow him to show Edward as someone who is still deeply in love with Vivian, but who also grapples with the challenges of growing older, facing regrets, and protecting his family. In a world that never stops changing, his return wouldn't just be nostalgic, it would be layered, heartfelt, and powerful. But no sequel can stand on nostalgia alone. To make Pretty Woman too fresh and relevant, the introduction of new characters would be essential. Imagine Edward and Vivian having a daughter in her late 20s, a young woman who has grown up in privilege but still searches for her own identity. She could embody a new generation's struggle with love, independence, and societal expectations. Her story could mirror her mother's in some ways, but with modern challenges like career ambitions, social pressures, and the complexities of finding real connection in a digital age. Through her, the audience would experience a younger perspective, while still being tied to the heart of the original love story. This daughter character could also create moments of tension and reflection for Edward and Vivian. Perhaps she questions the foundation of their love, wondering if fairy tales really exist. Or perhaps she feels overshadowed by her parents' story. That inner conflict would give the sequel an added emotional layer, allowing viewers to see Edward and Vivian not just as lovers, but as parents navigating the delicate balance of guiding their child while letting her live her own life. Supporting roles could also enrich the sequel. Fans would love to see Kit DeLuca, Vivian's best friend from the original, return in some capacity. Or San Giacomo, who played Kit, could bring humor, heart, and a sense of continuity to the film. Kit could now be living her own life, perhaps, having overcome her past struggles, offering a perspective on resilience and growth that complements Vivian's journey. Her presence would be both nostalgic and meaningful, showing how friendships also evolve over decades. Another new character could be a rival or an outsider who threatens Edward's business or personal life, creating conflict that challenges both him and Vivian. This antagonist wouldn't need to be a villain in the traditional sense, but could represent the real world. Pressures that love and family often face, whether it's corporate rivals, societal judgment, or even the temptations of old habits. A well-written rival would add stakes and tension, ensuring the story isn't just about romance, but about resilience. The beauty of this casting vision lies in its balance. On one hand, we get Roberts and Gere, the heart and soul of the franchise, whose reunion alone would be enough to make audiences flock to theaters. On the other hand, we get fresh faces and younger characters who expand the universe, bringing in new fans while honoring the old ones. Together, this blend of old and new would make Pretty Woman to feel both timeless and modern. At its core, the cast would serve a larger purpose, to remind us that love stories don't just belong to the young. They belong to every stage of life. Roberts and Gere would embody the seasoned romance that proves love can endure, while the younger cast members would bring the energy and uncertainty of discovering love for the first time. That duality would give the film a richness that most sequels can only dream of, and above all, seeing Julia Roberts and Richard Gere side by side again would be more than just a casting choice. It would be a cinematic event. It would symbolize a reunion not only of two actors, but of an entire era of romance films that made people believe in love. That chemistry, matured by decades of time and experience, would be the secret ingredient that makes Pretty Woman too unforgettable. Asterisk picture. The trailer opening on a quiet Beverly Hills morning. A wide shot of the city, sun spilling across glass towers and palm trees swaying in the breeze. Then, the camera drifts into a lavish home where a familiar figure stands by the window. Edward Lewis, older now, silver hair framing his face, gazes at the city he once conquered. His eyes, however, don't hold the same fire of ambition. They hold questions, memories, and the weight of time. In the background, a soft piano melody plays, evoking nostalgia. And then we hear a voice, warm, yet determined. It's Vivian. After all these years, Edward, do you still believe in fairy tales? That single line sets the tone, reminding us that this isn't just a continuation. It's a reckoning with what love becomes when decades pass. The storyline of Pretty Woman 2 could center on Edward and Vivian, facing a crossroad in their lives. Their love story was once unconventional, almost impossible, but it blossomed into something real and lasting. Life throws new challenges their way, ones that money and charm cannot fix. Edward, nearing retirement, finds his empire slipping from his control as younger, more aggressive rivals push into his territory. He must choose between holding on to his power or letting go to embrace a simpler life with the woman he loves. For Vivian, the challenge lies in rediscovering herself. Having dedicated so much of her life to family and supporting Edward, she begins to ask, who is she now, beyond the fairy tale? That question doesn't divide them, draws them into a deeper exploration of love's meaning, to bring a new emotional pulse. Their daughter could become a central thread in the story. She's ambitious, independent, and determined to make her own way, yet she struggles with the shadow of her parents' famous love story. Perhaps she falls for someone Edward disapproves of, a man who reminds him of his younger self, reckless and flawed. The irony would be clear. Edward, who once defied society to be with Vivian, now risks repeating the same cycle by judging his daughter's choices. Vivian, wise and compassionate, acts as the bridge, reminding Edward that love can't be measured by wealth, status, or appearances. This subplot would mirror the original's themes, while updating them for a modern generation. The trailer could tease this parallel story through quick emotional snapshots. The daughter walking away from a heated argument, Vivian embracing her, whispering words of encouragement. Edward sitting alone in a dark office, wrestling with his pride. These moments would give the audience glimpses of tension and heartache, building suspense while leaving the larger story shrouded in mystery. Conflict could also arise from Edward's business world colliding with their personal lives. Perhaps a new rival, a younger, ruthless figure, threatens not only his company, but his reputation. In a chilling scene, we could hear the rival say, "Fairy tales don't last forever, Edward." This antagonist wouldn't simply be a corporate enemy, but a symbol of time itself, the reminder that nothing lasts unless it's nurtured and defended. The battle Edward faces isn't just about contracts or boardrooms. It's about preserving the love and family that truly define his legacy. And then there are the quiet, tender moments. The trailer could highlight Vivian laughing in the kitchen, Edward watching her with the same awe he had decades ago. A romantic evening at the opera, where the two returned to the place that defined their love, only now with a lifetime of memories between them. A flashback sequence showing the iconic balcony scene, blended with a present-day moment where Edward once again climbs the metaphorical fire escape, proving his devotion all over again. These callbacks would strike directly at the hearts of fans, creating waves of nostalgia while reminding them that this story still has new chapters left to tell. The tone of the trailer would balance glamour with depth. There would be shots of luxury dash gowns, galas, high-stakes business meetings, juxtaposed with intimate scenes of family dinners, whispered arguments, and emotional reconciliations. The tagline could flash across the screen, 30 years later, love still rewrites the rules. And just before the trailer ends, we would get the moment fans have waited for. Edward and Vivian walking hand in hand, their silhouettes framed against the Los Angeles skyline as Roy Orbison's "Oh, Pretty Woman" swells once again, reintroducing the magic in a way that feels both familiar and brand new. What makes this storyline compelling is its honesty. It acknowledges that love isn't always easy, that life complicates even the strongest bonds, but it also insists that fairy tales don't have to fade. They can evolve, they can survive, they can grow deeper, richer, and more meaningful over time. Pretty Woman 2 would be a film not about finding love, but about keeping it, about fighting for it. and about realizing that the real happy ending is not the kiss. It's everything that comes after. Asterisk, why does the idea of Pretty Woman to strike such a powerful chord? Because it isn't just about reuniting Julia Roberts and Richard Gere, it's about revisiting a moment in time that defined what romance on screen could feel like. For many, Pretty Woman wasn't simply a movie, it was an experience. It was the film couples watched on first dates, the one that made audiences laugh, cry, and believe in love that defies the odds. It was a story that lingered long after the credits rolled, reminding people that sometimes the unlikeliest connections become the most beautiful. To return to that world after more than 3 decades would be more than just entertainment. It would be a chance to feel all out of those emotions. Again, only deeper and more layered with time. The nostalgia begins the moment we think of Vivian Ward's radiant smile, her fiery independence, and the way she completely transformed Edward Lewis's life. It's the red gown at the opera, the playful big mistake, huge shopping scene, and the unforgettable climb up the fire escape that cemented their story. As a modern fairy tale, these aren't just film scenes, they're cinematic memories that fans carry like personal experiences. A sequel would not try to recreate those moments exactly, but it would honor them, weaving subtle echoes of the past into a fresh, heartfelt narrative. For audiences, every callback, every whispered line, every musical note would feel like a reunion with old friends. But what makes the emotional pull even stronger is the way these characters have matured. Audiences who first watched Pretty Woman in 1990 have grown older alongside. Roberts and Gere, they've lived their own love stories, faced their own challenges. Now they long to see a romance that reflects the beauty and complexity of love. Later in life, Hollywood often celebrates young love, but rarely does it show what happens when love survives for decades, when passion and devotion evolve into something even more meaningful. Pretty Woman 2 would fill that gap. It's offering a love story that resonates with multiple generations. The film's nostalgic appeal also lies in its soundtrack and atmosphere. Imagine hearing Roy Orbison's iconic "Oh, Pretty Woman" reimagined, with a modern orchestral arrangement swelling at just the right moment in the trailer. Instantly, fans would be transported back, but with a sense of maturity and newness. Music has always been the heartbeat of this story, and in a sequel, it could bridge the past and present, nostalgia wrapped in fresh emotion. The sound of that guitar riff alone would be enough to make audiences smile through tears. The glamour of the original film fancy hotels, its elegant fashion and dazzling nights out would still be there, but with an added layer of richness. Now, the gowns would carry history. The ballrooms would echo with memories. And every shot of Edward and Vivian together would remind viewers of how far they've come. Even a simple scene of them walking down the street hand in hand would carry enormous weight because the audience has been waiting over 30 years to see it. The smallest gestures, a glance, a laugh, a kiss would hit harder than ever because they come from characters who have already proven their love to us once before. Nostalgia, however, isn't just about reliving the past. It's about confronting it. For Edward and Vivian, the ghosts of their beginnings would linger. How do they talk about the unusual way they first met? How do they explain their love story to their daughter? Do they laugh about it, defend it, or celebrate it? These questions add depth, creating opportunities for heartfelt dialogue that reminds fans of the original while showing growth and acceptance. In those moments, audiences wouldn't just be watching a movie, they'd feel like they're catching up with two old friends, hearing the rest of a story they've wondered about for decades. And then there's the fan expectation. Audiences don't just want to see Roberts and Gere on screen again, they want to feel the spark that made them unforgettable. They want the witty banter, the longing looks, the soft touches that made the original film so electric. A sequel has the chance to deliver on those expectations while also surprising viewers with new emotional heights. Imagine Edward delivering a heartfelt monologue about what Vivian has meant to him all these years. Imagine Vivian reminding Edward, in her playful yet profound way, that love is never about perfection. It's about choosing each other again and again. Those scenes would bring theaters to tears. The emotional appeal also extends to new audiences. Younger viewers, who may not have grown up with Pretty Woman, could discover the sequel as a story about timeless romance and be inspired to go back and watch the original. This dual impact, serving both lifelong fans and new ones, would give Pretty Woman to a rare power. It wouldn't just be a movie, it would be an event. A cultural moment that bridges generations through the universal language of love. Ultimately, the nostalgia of Pretty Woman 2 is not about repeating the past. It's about celebrating it while showing how love endures, evolves, and surprises us even decades later. The film's emotional core would remind fans of why they fell in love with these characters in the first place, while offering a new reason to fall in love with them all over again.